بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. This is section 2.1 about quadratic equations. Chapter 2 is about quadratic and other special equations. We studied linear equations in chapter 1. Well, how to solve quadratic equations? We will study two methods. First, the factoring method. A quadratic equation is an equation written in this form. So x has power 2 and a is not 0, because if the coefficient of x squared is 0, the equation would be linear. So this is the quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. Or we can say it's an equation of second degree. A, b, and c are constants here. First, let us take the zero factor or the zero product property. The zero product property says if a times b is 0, okay, if we have two numbers a, b, and their product is 0, this will happen only if a is 0 or b is 0 or both. And the other direction is always there. If a is 0, then ab is 0. If b is 0, then ab is 0. And if both are zeros, then of course ab would be 0. So this property, we use it when we solve quadratic equations, when we solve especially by factoring. So to write the equation, the quadratic equation in this form, we have to make the right side of the equation always 0. So here, for example, solve this quadratic equation. So whenever you have a quadratic equation, you start always by writing everything in the left-hand side. So for x, you take it to the other side. 2, you take it to the other side. And then you will have 6x squared. 3x minus 4x is negative x and minus 2 equals 0. So 3 minus 4 is negative 1. So now you have a quadratic equation in which a is 6, b is negative 1, and c is negative 2. What do you want to do? I need to factor the left-hand side. To factor the left-hand side, 3 terms, I factor the first term, which is 6x squared. I write it as product of 2 terms. So let us say 3x times 2x. And negative 2, I factor negative 2. I write it as a product of 2 terms, one here and one here. So negative 2 could be negative 2 times positive 1, or negative 1 times 2. You choose one of them. And then now you find the inner, you multiply the inner terms and the outer terms. So negative 2 times 2 is negative 4x. 3x times 1 is 3x. If you add these two, you get negative x, which is the mid term, the term in the middle. So this factored form is correct. So you start by factoring 6x squared, then negative 2, then check that the inner plus the outer will give you the second term. If not, you have to change. Instead of writing negative 2, 1 here, you may write negative 2, 1 here, or 2 and negative 1. You have different choices until you reach the correct factored form. So now we have these two parentheses. The product of them is 0. So using the zero product property, if a, b is 0, then one of them is 0. We conclude from here that either 3x minus 2 is 0, or 2x plus 1 is 0, or both. If this is 0, then we can solve this linear equation now. We can take 2 to the other side and divide by 3, and this would be the first solution. Or we take 1 to the other side and we divide by 2, so the other solution is negative half. So the solution set of this equation would be 2 over 3, and negative half. And you can check in the original equation that both numbers satisfy the equation. Another example, remember, if you have a quadratic equation, first thing to do is to take everything to the left-hand side. Keep the right-hand side 0 to use the zero product property. Now this is an equation. I can divide both sides by 3 if I like, okay? Because 6 is divided, when I divide 6 by 3, I get 2. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. Or you can keep it like this, okay? And then we need to factor the left-hand side. Well, now I have two terms, and factoring two terms easier than factoring three terms because you take only the common factor. So what is the common factor between these two terms? It is x. Usually, the smallest, the lowest power, okay? The smallest power is the common factor. So we have x to the power 2, x to the power 1. So you take x to the power 1 as a common factor, and then you divide 2x squared by x. So you have 2, and x squared divided by x is x, because 2 minus 1 is 1. And then minus 3x divided by x is negative 3, and x cancels with x. And now we use again the zero product property. Either x is 0 or 2x minus 3 is 0, and which means that 2x equals 3. And when we divide by 2, x would be 3 over 2. So the solution set in this case, 0 and 3 over 2. These are the two solutions of this equation, and you can check them. Notice that in this example, you cannot divide both sides by x, okay? You cannot divide by x because x could be 0. If you divide by x, you will remove one of the solutions of the equation. So don't divide by a variable. Don't divide by a variable. You can divide equations by number or multiply by number, not a variable. Another example, solve this equation by factoring. Well, the left-hand side is already factored, but the right-hand side is not 0. So we cannot say that either y minus 3 equals negative 4 or y plus 2 equals negative 4. This is not correct because the property is a zero product property. It works only if this side is 0, not negative 4. So what can I do? I have to expand this and to take everything to the left-hand side and to make the right-hand side 0. So always the right-hand side should be 0. Any other number is not accepted. So when we expand this, y times y is y squared, and the inner terms would be negative 3y, the outer terms 2y, negative 3y plus 2y is negative y, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, and I bring negative 2 to the other side, so it would be positive 4. So I will have y squared minus y, negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. And now I have a quadratic equation, and I can try to factor the left-hand side. Factoring the left-hand side when the coefficient of y squared is 1 is easy because y squared can be factored only to y times y. There is no other possibility. While here 6x squared could be factored into 3x times 2x or 6x times 1. So here we have a lot of possibilities. So this may take time. You need to practice how to factor three terms if the coefficient of x squared is not 1. But if the coefficient of x squared or y squared is 1, then that's easy. It's y times y. And now you search for two numbers. Their product is negative 2 and their sum is negative 1. Two numbers, their product negative 2, so it is negative 2 and positive 1. Their product is negative 2, and when you add them, you get negative 1. This would be the factored form of the left-hand side, because now the inner will give you negative 2y, the outer will give you y, so negative 2y plus y would be negative y. And now we can use the zero product property and have either y minus 2 equals 0 or y plus 1 equals 0. So either y is 2 or y is negative 1, and the solution set of this equation will consist of the two numbers 2 and negative 1, and you can check them in the original equation as usual. Well, here we have a fraction. So we have also x in the denominator. So we know how to deal with such equations. If you remember, we need to multiply by LCD, both sides. So what do we have? We have 3x plus 6. We cannot we can factor it. We can take 3 as a common factor if we like, okay? And we have x, and we have here x and 3x plus 6. So in fact, the LCD is x times 3x plus 6. And now we need to multiply each term in the equation by this LCD. So that's the left-hand side. And now I multiply 3 over x times the LCD. And then I multiply the LCD times the second term in the right-hand side. And now, do we have cancellations? Well, here x cancels with x. Here 3x plus 6 and x cancels all of them. And here all of them cancels. So we have the following. Here we have x plus 1. Here we have 3 times 3x plus 6. 3 times 3x is 9. X 3 times 6 is 18. And here I have 2x plus 6. All right. So I got rid of all the denominators. It's not a quadratic equation because we don't have x squared. So I just take now x's to the one side and numbers to the other side. This is how we deal with linear equations. So here 9x plus 2x, that's 11x. 18 plus 6 is 24. And then x minus 11x is negative 9x. And 24 minus 1 is 23. And x would be 23 over negative 9. This would be the solution of this equation. It doesn't make the denominator 0. So that's the solution. Checkpoint. The factoring method for solving a quadratic equation is based on zero product property. Okay, he already wrote product property, so I just need to write here 0, okay? So 0 product property. Hence, to solve a quadratic equation by factoring, one side of the equation must equal to 0. Okay, we do not accept any other number. It should be 0 to use the 0 product property. This is an example. Solve the following equations by factoring. So to solve this equation, I will take the number to the other side, making the right-hand side 0. And now try to factor. The coefficient of x squared is 1, so this is easy. X times x, and two numbers, their product is negative 20, and their sum is negative 19. So negative 20 times positive 1 will give you negative 20, and their sum is negative 19. So the inner negative 20 plus 1 would be negative 19. So either using now the 0 product property, either x minus 20 is 0 or x plus 1 is 0. So either x is 20 or x is -1. So these are the solutions of this quadratic equation. Another example, as usual, quadratic equation. So I take everything to the right-hand side. I can divide by 2, and let me this time not dividing by 2 and take 2 as a common factor. X also is a common factor. And 2x squared divided by 2x is x, minus 6x divided by 2x is 3. So either 2x is 0 or x minus 3 is 0. Now if you divide by 2, x would be 0, and here x is 3, and these are the two solutions of this equation. The second method is the quadratic formula. And first, let us talk about square root property. And this is a very important property. And it says the solutions of x squared equals c. So here we have x squared equals c. It's a quadratic equation, but with a1, b, c 0, and c in this case we take it to the other side. If you have only x squared, so you can take c to the other side to use the square root property, because the solution of this equation is either x is positive square root of c or negative square root of c. So for example, if x squared is 9, then x would be plus or minus square root of 9, which is 3. So if we have equation like this, x squared minus 9 equals to 0, we can solve it using the square root property, taking 9 immediately to the other side. Although we can solve it, x minus 3 times x plus 3 equals to 0, and then we use the zero product property. Notice that if c is negative, the solutions are not real numbers. And we are here, we are interested only in real numbers solutions. So for example, if x squared is negative 16, then x would be plus or minus square root of negative 16. And this is for I, for who knows I, the imaginary number. So this is not real. These numbers are not real numbers. So we say no real solutions for such an equation. Some examples about the square root property. Solve this equation. Notice that square root property says x squared equals c. So here I have to divide first by 4. So I have x squared with coefficient 1. So now using the square root property, either x is plus or minus, okay, it's plus or minus square root of 5 over 4. But square root of 5 is square root of 5, square root of 4 is 2, so I can write it like this. And these the two solutions of this equation. Notice here I have something squared times equals 9. So I can consider this as u squared equals 9, and the solutions would be u plus or minus square root of 9, which is 3. Instead of expanding this and taking 9 to the other side and try to solve by factoring, that's a very long method. Now the zero factor property says if you have something like this, then immediately 3x minus 4 would be plus or minus square root of 9, which is 3. So I have two cases. Either 3x minus 4 is 3, or 3x minus 4 is negative 3. And you have two linear equations. You can solve them and find the values of x, taking 4 to the other side, dividing by 3. The first solution is 7 over 3. Or here, if you take 4 to the other side, it would be 4 minus 3, 1, and x would be 1 over 3. So the solution set of this equation consists of the two numbers 7 over 3 and 1 over 3, and you can check the solutions in the original equation. Okay, the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula says if we have a quadratic equation, and of course a is not 0, or it will be not quadratic, then x the solution of this equation, or the solutions, because we'll have two solutions, could be found using this formula. And this formula is called the quadratic formula. So let us apply here in the example. I need to determine a, b, and c. So a is the coefficient of x squared. It is 2. b is the coefficient of x. It's negative 3. C is the constant term. It's negative 6. And the right-hand side is 0. Notice that the right-hand side should be 0. If it is not 0, you have to take the numbers to the other side to determine A, B, and C. So you do not determine A, B, and C unless the right-hand side is 0. And now use the formula. So what is the formula? It says x is equal to negative b. b is negative 3. So negative b would be 3 plus or minus square root of b square. b square, squaring this number would be 9. Negative 3 all to the power 2 is 9. Minus 4 times a is 2, and c is negative 6. So this is negative 4ac. 4 times a times c over 2 times a is 2. So only you evaluate now and find the answer. So here, this is 9. Minus times minus would be plus. So you can use the calculator if you like. 9 plus 4 times 2, 8 times 6. Okay, 48 plus 9. You will have inside the root 57. So 9 plus 48 is 57 over 4. And these are the two solutions. If you try to find the square root of 57, it is not an integer. So this is the exact solution. So solutions of this equation would be 3 plus or minus 57 over 4. Using the quadratic formula, find the real solutions of this equation. As we said, we have to take everything to the left-hand side first, and then we determine A, B, and C. A is 1, B coefficient of x negative 1, C constant term 1. Let us use the formula. The formula says x equals negative b, so 1, plus or minus square root of b square, so it is 1, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 1. So there is no need to write 1 because anything times 1 is the same number. 2a, 2 times 1 is 2. So I'll have 1 plus or minus. Now 1 minus 4 is negative 3. 4 times 1 is 4. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. Now square root of negative 3 is not a real number. So this equation has no real solution. So there are no real solutions of this equation, okay? Because he said find the real solutions. No real solutions. The two solutions are not real because square root of negative 3 would be I square root of 3. Now this quantity, which is b squared minus 4ac, we know that the formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So this quantity b squared minus 4ac is called the quadratic discriminant, okay? The discriminant. This discriminant decides or gives you the type and the kind of the roots, how many roots we have, and what is the type of these roots. Are they real or not real? As we have seen here, when the discriminant was 57, it's a positive number, so we will have two real solutions. These solutions are real. While here, when the discriminant is negative, then there no real solution. So if the discriminant is 0, the equation has no real solutions. If the discriminant is positive, greater than 0, then it has two distinct real solutions. Distinct means different. So here we have two different solutions. One of them is 3 positive square root of 57 over 4, and the other one is 3 negative square root of 57 over 4. These are two different solutions, and in fact, you can use your calculator to approximate these solutions. You write 3 plus the square root of 57 over 4. The calculator says to you this is about 2.64, approximately 2.64, while the other solution, 3 minus square root of 57 over 4, is equal to negative 1.14. So these are the two numbers, different numbers. So two distinct or different real solutions. If the discriminant is 0, we will have exactly one real solution, because what happens if the discriminant is 0? The solution would be negative b over 2a. That's it. Imagine that 57 here is 0. So the solution would be 3 over 4. Only one solution. There will be no plus or minus. The statement of the quadratic formula says, if quadratic formula, if we have this equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, and a is not 0, then x is given by negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is the quadratic formula. Solve this equation using a quadratic formula. First step, as usual, we have to take 9 to the other side. The right-hand side should be 0. Now a is 2, b is negative 5, c is negative 9. And let us apply the formula. He said using a quadratic formula. Negative b. Negative 5 is 5 plus or minus. Now square root of the discriminant. What is the discriminant? B square. B square is 25 minus 4 times a. A is 2 times c. C is negative 9. So over 2 times a is 2, so this is 4. We will have the following. 5 plus or minus square root of what? Now put the discriminant inside the calculator. 25 minus 4 times 2 times negative 9. You will get 97. 97 has no square root. If you ask for square root of 97, it is not an integer. So these are the two solutions. The two solutions of this equation are 5 plus or minus square root of 97 over 4. That's it. Thank you very much. Hope you understand the quadratic equations very well and the two methods.